welcome back to Gotta Be Me podcast. We're so happy to be here again with you today. We are your hosts. My name is Sophia Benion, and this is my cousin Peyton Benion.
Welcome back to our channel, everybody. If you are new here, please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll appreciate it so much.
We are so excited today. We are so happy today. We are so blessed today. We are so proud today. We are just we're just overwhelmed with the emotions. Good and wonderful emotions, because we finally got our dads on the podcast. You wouldn't believe how hard it was. I don't even know if they really want. No, I'm joking. But we got so many requests for it, and we knew immediately that was such a good idea.
Because you already saw our moms, or if you didn't see our moms, go back and see our mom.
Our mom video was like our big video, our first big video. And then everybody's like, "Where's your dads?" And we were like, "Coming right up." But then it wasn't right up. Anyway, they're here now, and we're so excited. This is my dad right here, sitting beside me, and that's Peyton's dad sitting beside her.
This is my dad right here.
As I'm sure you can probably tell. Comment if you think Peyton looks like her dad.
This is my twin. Where have you been?
Actually, people always tell me I look like my dad too. I've never seen it. Not one time in my life have I studying his face and seen it. But that's what people say. Which maybe I look more like him than my mom. Comment if you think I look like my dad, if you see it. I just wanted to say about my dad that he was I should at least say a big part of my inspiration for starting a podcast. He's done podcasts before himself. I'll never forget the first time he came home because he wanted to show us that this podcast that him and his boss had decided to do in his previous job. And we thought it was so funny and so interesting. And then he moved on to do more and bigger podcasts, and to me it was like part of the reassurance, okay, my dad does it, maybe it can one day be something I would be good at. So, and when we went to start this podcast, we had the idea, we were about to get going, and then I kind of chickened out. I don't know if you remember, Peyton, and I was like, "I'm not doing this, I can't do this." And my dad was like, "No, you're doing it. No, you are doing it, and then I was like, "Oh, I am doing it." So I'm really grateful to him that he was my inspiration and he was a thumb in my back and all that to begin this podcast.
I think as you get to hear them and get to know a little bit more about them, you'll hear a lot of where me and Sophia get our talking skills from.
Our dads are definitely very talkative. Me and Peyton were already, before the podcast, me and Peyton how's this going to go? Because our dads both talk so much.
Yeah, I'm skeptical about how long this is going to be.
Peyton's it's definitely not going to be shorter than 2 hours. I don't even believe it. Anyway.
Would you like us to join your podcast, or is this a...
Me and Peyton are just going to talk.
Could you tell our listening audience where you grew up and about your life?
I'd be glad to do that. I'm so glad to be on the podcast with you.
Very good.
So,
we were both born, I'll tell a little bit, and then he could speak for himself, but we were both born in a small town in Illinois, DeKalb, Illinois, and it was a university town, and that's where my parents had met. Our parents had met, and they stayed on. And so we were born in a small town. We left after my 8th grade year. So I was 14. Actually, not quite 14. You would have been not quite 12.
Yeah, going into 6th grade.
And we moved to the suburbs of Chicago. We both graduated from Romeoville High School, which is a southwest suburb near Joliet, southwest suburb of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So y'all never lived in Alabama? That was just Uncle Marcus?
I did for a little bit.
You did, right? I thought
kind of like college-ish. But most of everything for me is Bolingbrook. It's the brook baby.
So DeKalb,
What's up?
Romeoville, where's Bolingbrook?
So after we moved from DeKalb, after my 8th grade year, so 13 years, turning 14, we moved to a little area, the suburbs called Bolingbrook is where we moved, where we went to, I went to Bolingbrook High School that year. And interestingly, because of where we lived, they would bus some of the Bolingbrook students to the neighboring school, Romeoville. And we lived on the border. It wasn't required, I didn't have to. And I wanted to go to Bolingbrook. I had met some children from Bolingbrook, and I thought that's where I wanted to go. And there was a lot of bad things people were saying about Romeoville, the Bolingbrook people, rival school. So we went to Bolingbrook, but we had to walk or get a ride or ride your bike or whatever there. So we did that for my first year. I say we because we had a cousin that lived with us at the time. And then you were going to...
I never wanted to go to Bolingbrook. Never.
You always wanted to go to
but
Romeo's?
all want to go to the
all your
Ville.
friends were
All my
We're
friends
headed for the
yeah,
Ville anyway.
we lived on that side of town, so I went to. So our growing up was a little bit different, right? Like, so we moved from rural college town to suburb of Chicago. So automatically, it's totally different. And the suburb, the way it was structured, was it was one of these suburbs was where people were moving out to,
from
right, from the city. So they were moving from.
It was a part of that urban sprawl,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like
It was-
Bolingbrook now compared to what it was desolate then compared to what it is now.
Yeah, so
it was the early part of their growth.
Yeah, so like for me, I was in the early and right in the mid. So the schools both, like when I was there, they were both pretty big schools. Romeoville was
Romeoville
actually
and
bigger. Yeah, they were
Bolingbrook
both,
were both big.
2,000 students ish. Well,
These were high schools, right?
we were
Bolingbrook was
less.
like 15.
Yeah.
Romeoville was like 2,000
Okay.
ish when I
When
graduated.
you graduated, a little bit less when I graduated.
Okay, so, but all my like strong things that shaped me were from Bolingbrook, right? You get there when you're like a preteen,
Mm-hmm.
and then into my teenage years, and then even when I went to college, I would come back to all my boys from the Brook,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that was my whole thing. So, but we wanted to go to Romeoville. Like we hated Bolingbrook.
Why?
Because it was Bolingbrook. Well, it was. You know what it was? It was in the mid '90s, and we were like, hey, the Bolingbrook people, they are so preppy. They're like they're wearing their like Bolingbrook jackets around and stuff, and we was all wearing like starter coats, right? Like it was like, oh, we getting a starter coat.
That was it. Huh?
Yeah, we was wearing starter coats and Nikes, and they was wearing like boat shoes, and we were like, oh, they are so terrible. They're so soft, and a lot of them were our friends. Like we were friends with. I went to school with people from Bolingbrook, and we were friends, and we liked each other. And even when we went to separate schools, when we'd see each other, be like, oh,
You
what's
just
up?
didn't want to be associated with
Yeah,
that.
we were like, nah, nah, ain't.
Whereas for me, I was new there, so he had junior high years to build up his network.
Mm-hmm.
So my friends, my formative years were in DeKalb. Then when I got to Bolingbrook, I go to one high school as a freshman. I don't know anybody, and to this day, I have very few
Connections.
deep. Well, I have no connections, but like memories. My freshman year of high school just came and went. Then I transferred to the rival school, in part because that was his future school. Like that was the direction, and I could get a bus.
You didn't have to
So
walk.
having to walk in the winters, Illinois winters, well, that was.
That sounds like a
that was nice.
nightmare.
So anyway, I transferred, and I was new, and I only went to high school for 3 years. And I had to build my relationships, your high school relationships, in 3 years, which is not really enough time. And like always, people are like, hey, you know so and so? I'd be like, who? And they'd be like, you know so and so? I'd be like, who are you talking about? And if they would show me, I'd be like, oh, them.
I've seen them.
Because I didn't have those deep bonds. So after that, and I go to college. To me, when you leave high school and you go to college, that's a whole new set of relationships that you develop. So I graduated from high school and I had good friends, but I didn't maintain those very well, partly because it just wasn't a deep, it was a
More of
3-year
your friends
relationship.
ended up being from
Yeah.
college.
Right.
And while we're talking about high school, we'll probably have to talk about all the sports y'all play. Y'all played a lot of sports, right? I mean, I know my dad played football in college. He used to be big. He's skinny now.
You used to be. How much did you used to weigh? What's your heaviest weight?
I was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 260-ish.
Oh, I did not know you were almost 300 pounds.
That's crazy.
That's not almost 300.
That is.
That is a long way
No,
away from
by the
300.
time you've gotten to 260, you're almost to
It's
300.
like, okay.
You're in the neighborhood.
No, that's not. When you play football and you play with somebody 300,
Yeah,
and you're
you-
like
that's a big
getting
difference.
pushed
Then
around,
you think
you're
it's-
like,
then you notice the
I'm getting
difference.
buried. Yeah. And you know what? I only it was
buried.
like a time where I touched it, but as soon as the season, it was like in the off season, and I got really big, and I was like using creatine, and I was like, oh, right. And then once I started playing, the weight started coming off just every day
from
play.
virtue of
and
being
then-
active.
And I played like at 240-ish,
Okay.
something like that. There's about 100 pounds difference to what I am now.
So tell us about that. Did you play in high school too? Then I'm
Did
assuming.
you play sports like just from little on up? or-
Wait. I don't think you meant what you just said.
What did I say, 100 pounds?
Yeah, 100 pounds.
Not
You don't
100
weigh 140. You
70
don't weigh
pounds.
140. You don't weigh
70.
160.
I'm 185, 180.
That's from 260 to 180.
80 pounds.
80 pounds. That's still.
That's a lot.
But we,
You're
That's the whole
skinny.
person.
You're very
so
skinny.
I basically played the sports that my brother played. So if he played it, then I was like, okay, yeah, I'll play it. And we did
Football,
soccer.
Soccer is where we started.
Yeah, soccer and track.
Track is where we started.
And I did basketball. You did basketball or no?
Very, very minimal.
I did
Not
basketball.
enough to talk about.
Okay. I did basketball for a while. And for a while, I thought I was going to be a basketball player.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That
You were
was it.
more into that than football?
I was telling everybody I'm not playing football. Don't ask me. And then I
Don't
am
even
playing
ask me.
football and wrestling.
Yeah.
You probably knew you were gonna play football after you got so, like, wasn't there like a kind of sudden transformation for you? Like you went from like,
Yeah, you know what? I was like, in 6th grade, I was like, maybe like 5 foot. I know, maybe 4'11" and 150 pounds.
you were chunky.
Yeah, but then the next year I was like 5'5" and 150 pounds, and then like
You just stretched
5'7"
out.
and 150 pounds. Yeah, I kind of stayed the same weight for like 3
So
years.
when did you get big? Wasn't that kind
Sophomore
of
year.
sudden too?
Sophomore year? I was probably
You
more-
remember?
That was the year. That was the year that all my friends were like, "Hey, you seen your brother?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course."
Yeah.
So what?
That's when his chest got all big, and people were like, "Look at your brother," because he was kind of chunky as a little boy,
Right.
and because he walks kind of pigeon-toed, people would think he was clumsy. We have to tell the greatest story of all time about you saving his soccer goal. But anyway, but when he got to be a sophomore was the year your body changed. But that
probably
was
was-
that's another story too, because that was also at the end of Byron's punishment. Like that all. That's a whole nother family
Byron's
story.
That's part of
I
the-
know, but I was gonna say
so.
that
If you know the
was
story,
at school.
if any of viewers know the story of Conan the Barbarian and how he went from being just a slave and then all of a sudden he got swole. That's what
That was
happened.
having Uncle Brian.
That's what happened to him.
He was the
He got
slave.
swole all of a sudden. He was slaving for real. He was in such trouble. Anyway, that's a whole nother story.
Oh,
That's a true story though.
I was on one road like,
So what's the story? What
He
happened?
got swole.
Byron's punishment.
Which you
What
cut
did
off
you do?
somebody's ponytail, right?
No, you
I would
didn't.
get
Oh, no,
in
you didn't. You held
trouble.
some
I
money.
would get in trouble, but I didn't like know how to just get in like trouble, like little trouble.
If it was
Yeah,
trouble, it was just big.
I was all the way in. I didn't get half. I was all the way in. And this is one of
But
those.
it wasn't like you were like a bad child.
Oh no.
It was just stupid stuff, being young, not thinking about consequence, not remembering who his parents are.
Yeah.
I love the TikTok videos and the Instagram videos about black parents. Because that's what we had.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
when
yeah.
what
Yeah,
you see on
that's
there,
right.
that's what we had.
That's
you
real.
had.
And he wasn't thinking about like the consequences.
No, just doing stuff.
And I'll say this about Dad. You've had our parents on.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you this about Dad. Dad grew up under the. They said the ironing cord. That's how they got with it.
Irony
that's
board.
a real thing. That's a real thing.
But he didn't spank us a whole lot. Mom was the spanker.
Mm-hmm.
Dad was the cruel and unusual.
I believe you.
No, that's
But it
my
wasn't.
dad.
It wasn't like he didn't make us do things that should have been reported to CPS or anything like that. But like he had a way of knowing how to get into your psychology and making you like, like anything. Like, can I get a spanking, please?
Anything other than this.
Yeah, anything other than this. So,
Yeah, that's true.
so when you got in trouble, it was just being stupid. It wasn't even.
For sure. It was
So what'd you do? What was Byron's punishment?
Well, the punishment, I was grounded until I could get back to school, till school started.
So all
it's-
summer you were grounded.
well, it started from the beginning of the summer. So basically, now listen, I'm a nice person. And I'm a good teacher. So what happened was, we were at the lunch table, right? And at the lunch table, we were just sitting there talking, and this one young man, he was like popping off at the gums, just like nonstop, like. And then my friends were like, "Hey, if you don't shut up, we're gonna do something to you." And he was like, "Oh," he just kept going, right? We were all in a friend group together, but these were more loose friends, more like they were my friends, but they weren't like my real. It wasn't like Shay
Tier
Poe.
two.
It wasn't like Shay Poe
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Rodney or something like that.
Oh, shout out to Shay Poe,
It's my man.
Rodney Jackson.
Yeah, these are my
remember
people.
them.
Those are my people.
Those
now.
are some good people.
Okay, so we're at the table. Then we go to class, and we're in drafting class. I thought I was going to be an architect, so we were in drafting class. We're in there, and I was in there with this other young man. He goes, "Hey, what we're going to do is when we come out of this class, we're going to grab him." And I'll grab him and you cut off his ponytail. And he had like a tail like this long.
He had a long ponytail.
Long, but he spent some time doing this thing.
Like, it was not just a 3-month thing.
No. He spent some time on it. So he grabbed him, and I was like,
No, you
and he
didn't.
was like, I can't believe you did that. I was like, I thought that was the plan.
Your friend?
My
said,
friend
"I
was
can't
that.
believe
Yeah,
you
he
did
was
that."
like, all right, we got you. And I was like, and he was like, I can't believe you did that. I'm like, I thought that was the plan. Like he was talking at the like, did we plan on that? That was the plan.
That sounds like Peyton
So
right there.
this young man, I feel bad about it now. It wasn't right. I'm saved now. I wouldn't do that.
I'm saved.
The Lord has helped me. No, that's
been
not
saved.
good. At the time, I was not. But we did it, and then we went home because it was the weekend. It was like a Friday, and it was free and clear. I wasn't on punishment. I was good. We was doing whatever. Then Monday came, and my one boy, now Bobby came to me, Rucka. He was like, hey, he's told his parents, and you gonna be in trouble. I was like, serious? He was like, yeah.
He forgot who his parents were.
He was like,
In the moment, he forgot.
so then I get called to the dean's office. And the good thing was, this is the best thing about this whole thing, is of course, I can't tell mom and dad that I cut this boy's hair. I'm
Right.
like, well, if I do that, then it's just over. It's over. Like
die.
everything's over. Like,
die.
right. So I get in there, and the boy that I did it with, his parents don't care. And I sit down next to him in the dean's office. He's like, hey, I'll tell him I cut it because you're in trouble. Like he knew.
He
knew.
knew
Yeah.
that your parents were
Everybody
gonna-
knew. The whole school knew. It was like, hey,
Yeah, mom
I'll
and dad
tell
had a
him,
reputation.
let's switch. You held him and I cut it. I'm like, deal.
You know what I'm saying? Hey, hold on. You want to know something? I didn't know this part.
You didn't know that his parents
No,
were going to take it for
I
him?
thought he was the one that held him this whole time. Like, you making confessions. You really are saying.
I told mom and dad.
God
Yeah.
has blessed you.
Raise you
You really
up.
saying.
I held that till I was 30 or something.
Between me and you. Between me and you right here.
I thought this was you that held him.
No, I held that till I was in my 30s.
Oh.
I was deep in the 30s. I was like, had Peyton, Titus was there. I was like, maybe I should tell my dad. Tell mom and dad. I was like, you know that one time. I was like, you know that one
In
time.
his 30s, still haven't confessed to mom and dad.
I was like, you know that one time when I had
So,
cut.
but you still got grounded for a whole summer.
Oh yeah, they kind of laughed about it. Well, I can't believe you're with people like that. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, why would
I
I do
can't
that?
believe.
Who would do such a thing? You got to double down on it.
Yeah,
It's like,
you
yeah,
gotta
I don't know.
double down on it.
I don't know. So then I got grounded, but it wasn't that I was grounded for. Yeah, I held on to it strong, and thought about bringing it up. I was like, I should probably say something about that. No,
Not yet.
It ain't that important.
That's before he got sanctified. That's what happened. He was saying, what he
needed
was
the
saying,
second
he was
word.
working through his sanctification is what happened.
I was being purged. Cut that off.
Okay, Lord.
It was
I did not know
a
that.
finger. It was a finger.
So what was the best story of all time that you're talking about from soccer?
Do you want to hear the rest of this
Oh, wait,
Bible
there's more?
punishment?
Oh well,
You ain't heard what the punishment was.
So I was grounded, which is not bad, right? But we were never. Our parents were wise in the fact that they never really took anything away that was important to our future and deeply, right? So I played football in the summer. We had football Monday through Thursday, easy, maybe Friday. And so my dad was like, "You can go to football, but you can't get a ride with anybody." So I was like,
See?
"Okay."
Okay, now
Unusual and
we
cruel.
live in one town, and the school and the team is in another town.
Are you playing football in Romeoville?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he has to. Remember, we were getting bused to school.
How many miles is that?
I have to look it up, but it's.
I feel
it's
like
a
it was
minute.
15.
I thought you were gonna say
miles?
5.
15 to
I thought
15.
you were gonna say
miles?
5.
15 to,
Probably.
That's why you and the boys.
15
We
to,
didn't
like
look it up. We
riding
didn't look up the
around.
route.
I would be
You
interested.
take Weber Road?
I took Weber Road.
Somebody needs to get on
Google
Weber Road.
Maps.
Google it. Yeah,
The
someone of
thing
your
is- the-
viewers need to tell us how.
But the thing is about Weber Road, it's not like it is now.
Not yeah. It was back
Not-
like a country road.
Yeah, it was a country road, so people were like, "Ooh." There was,
past the,
I'm on the bike. There was no nothing.
Shoulders.
Shoulder.
No
crazy.
sidewalk.
I was 15 years old, like on a
Hey,
bike,
this is
like
before
working.
Caroline. Caroline? Is that what
No,
it's called?
Caroline was there.
It was new.
But it was like a reprieve.
Taking us way back now.
But Caroline was like a reprieve because you get over in the little thing for the then come back out. But like, yeah, it was just like you know how like the shoulder.
So you were biking Monday through Thursday or Friday, there and back.
Because it was my only source of
Like,
life outside of our house.
Of your grounding.
Right. So I would go there and I'd be the first one there. And people be gone and leaving. I'd be like lingering till the last person was there.
Try to
Then I'd be
stretch it
like,
out.
guess I better head home. Yeah. Then I would bike home.
How long did that take you?
To bike and bike? I don't know, but it was long. But my legs got really big.
So you're saying at the end of that summer was when you were like,
His body started changing.
Yeah. I mean, I got a little bit taller, and I probably went from, when I was in ninth grade, I was probably like 165, and then probably when I was in 10th grade, I was about 185. So similar
And
to
looking
how I
like
am now.
this.
Yeah.
okay,
As a 15-year-old.
you look
Yeah,
grown.
I gained a lot of weight in my high school, so I was like 65, then 85, then 205, then like 215.
Like you just kept boom, boom, boom every
like,
year.
By the time I graduated, I was 215. By the time I touched college, it was like every year I was like 235. Just
Was it hard for you to get into the college football team?
get in. I mean, I was recruited.
Oh, you were recruited?
Yeah.
From high school. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I was all-state football players.
Look at you. Who's the most famous person you ever played football with?
With?
Or against?
Against.
Randy Moss. I played against
You were
Randy
on the
Moss.
field with Randy Moss
Dad,
one
you
time.
have such a hilarious story about Randy Moss and how huge he was.
Was he the one
And
that
how
picked you
fast
up?
he was.
Listen to me. We're not going to tell those stories.
Right now he picked you up.
We will move on.
Please tell the right. Isn't that Randy?
So, and where did you go to school?
No! Tell Randy Moss story. Was he the one that picked you up
This is the thing.
and
Like,
threw you down?
no, he didn't.
He didn't.
No, he didn't. He actually spit on one of my friends. He was like, he came with the sideline. He was like, he spit on me. I'm like, he spit on you. Yeah, he spit on me.
You know what? He can tell his grandchildren, I got spit on by Randy Moss.
He was like talking about him, like, ack, and he was like, hey. Oh, he spit on you. He was like, he spit on me. I'm like, all right,
That's
terrible.
crazy.
But that team was full of like NFL players, just full.
Really?
Their quarterback, the receivers, the running backs, like full of them. I mean, but Randy Moss, obviously a Hall of Fame football player.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's probably the most famous person that I played against.
Do you think you were going to the NFL?
No.
Never. You're just gonna play college.
I
and-
actually wanted to be a football coach in high school. Like it was like my desire to.
You
do
already
that.
knew that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah. I mean, I knew from a young age that I thought I would be a teacher.
So how many years did you coach football?
16, I think. Yeah, 16.
And how about you, Dad? When did you start? Well, you mainly, I know you mentioned soccer and track and football, but you mainly wrestled, right?
In my high school years, I did football and wrestling at the same time. Well, not literally at the same time, but those were both heavily emphasized. Partly, I think I'll say this on our behalf, partly because our dad played college football.
Okay.
And so I would think that he would have been at least a sports idol to us. Just a quick story. He didn't tell this story when he was on your program, but I didn't find out until my fourth child was born, Elias. He was at the house after the baby was born. We were talking that he was not as good as we thought he was. and I think he got beat out one year and he wasn't the starter and he was kind of not as hardworking. And he made us work like
Super
dogs,
hard.
which it shaped us. Like, I'm not complaining, but it was just funny. Anyway, so
My first football game, he said, we played against Naperville Central. And remember Romeo was terrible. And we were even more terrible. And Naperville Central has never been terrible.
that's right.
And so we play against them, and the first game, I'm on the kickoff return team. They kick off the ball, and it's me and another boy. This is my first football game.
Is this freshman or?
I was a freshman, but I was moved up to sophomores,
Yep.
right? And so the first football game, I'm the deep man on the kickoff return, me and this other boy, there's two people. They kick the ball goes on the ground. I look at him like, do I pick this up? I'm like confused about like, is this punt or kickoff or what is it? And he's like, leave it alone, leave it alone. I'm like, leave it alone. And everybody in the sideline was like, get the ball. And I'm like, should we dive on it? It was just like, oh. And then after the game, I remember I was so tired. I played so terrible. Like I was just dragging. And my dad said, if you ever play like that again, I'm going to take you off the team.
Your dad was going to take you off of the
Taking
team.
you off. If you play
ever
like that again,
That's hilarious.
I'm taking you off the team. I was like, I'll play harder next time.
I will not be playing like that again.
So anyway, I played
crazy.
football and wrestling at the same time. I had football dreams. He was a defensive player. I liked offense, and I was a wrestler. But wrestling was a thing I was natural at. Football, I was never natural at, and it wasn't until I got into my 30s that I just went ahead and acknowledged that I just wasn't a very good footballer.
So get 15
I
years.
used to have all these. I used to talk about how I played too many positions, never got good at one.
Yeah,
Because
this excuse
I
and
was
that
a good
excuse.
athlete. I played quarterback, running back, tight end. My best position was tight end. I was all of 150 pounds and 5'8" playing tight end, but I could block. Receiver, linebacker, outside linebacker. I played everything. I was a place kicker, like after scoring touchdowns. Anyway, wrestling was what I was good at, and it wasn't until probably my junior year that I thought, you know what, wrestling is probably my opportunity if I plan to go to college. And I wasn't good enough at that point to get a lot of notice from colleges because unlike most athletes, and now it's even different, it's even more so than it was when I was young, but most college-bound high school athletes do a lot of summer wrestling at national level tournaments, and I never did because I was so in love with football. And so it wasn't until my senior year that I
Of
got
high
good
school.
enough and did well enough. Actually, nobody told me this, but in order to get the kind of attention that I ended up getting, not having had attention because I didn't do the summer stuff, I was an unknown. I basically had to win the state tournament and or be undefeated, or something like combination of those things. And that's what happened for me, and that put me in a position where I did get some offers from major universities,
I remember one
but
time.
not very many because I was unknown. The other thing that helped was Illinois is traditionally a very tough state for high school wrestling. They put out a lot of really, really good. Matter of fact, I was watching recently the number of wrestlers that end up at the NCAA tournament every year that originate from Illinois. It's a bunch.
Really?
If the University
known
of
for
Illinois,
wrestling.
my alma mater, could just keep its Illinois talent, they'd be a top 5 program every single year.
Really?
I believe that. Easy. Like it wouldn't be if they just kept their talent in Illinois.
So when you got to college, you stopped wrestling, or you?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
that was just a high school thing.
Right.
And same thing, like when you got to college, you stopped.
That's most people don't two-way. You
Right.
specialize.
Right. So one time, I don't know if you remember this, but you were telling me a story about wrestling and how you weren't really thinking about it. You kind of surprised yourself the first time you won something big. And then you were kind of like, well, let's keep going. Let's see what, and every time it was just kind of like, I'll do my best. Let's
Not
see
quite.
what happens.
Yeah, that's not exactly how the story goes. But I'm glad you
bad.
asked. So it's 1995. It's the year that I win the national tournament. And I was the 9th seed, which is not a very high seed in wrestling. And I just really stayed. I went there as a 9th seed. I didn't qualify the year before, so I'm a sophomore. And I just went in with the thought, all right, here's my first match. And I wrestled and I won, and that went well. And I wrestled my second match. The thing about college wrestling is it's just like March Madness for basketball. Your viewers who know this, anything can happen. Number 1 seeds get knocked off in the pigtail
time.
rounds all the time.
Really?
It's just a really hard on your nerves kind of. It's hard to stay focused. You could be dominating all year long, and then a nobody from a small town comes in, small school comes in and knocks you off, and maybe kills you 13-2 or something. And you're like, what happened to him? That happens. State tournaments that way too.
What's that?
Guilty.
I missed something.
Guilty.
Nothing.
Guilty.
So I was a 9th seed. I think the 2 seed is who I would have met. Let me think. No. Yes, the 2 seed I would have met at some point in time, but he got knocked off early and got beat by somebody who I knew I could beat. So as I was getting closer to the finals, it was like, I'm doing pretty good. I feel good. I'm hitting my things. Nobody's getting me. And I remember calling Dad. Because he wasn't there this year. Because again, I was the 9th seed. I didn't qualify the year before. Nobody's expecting me to make it to the finals. So my parents aren't at
They
the
didn't even
tournament.
show up.
No. So I just start winning. He's like,
cool.
"How you doing?" I'm like, "Dad, I'm not trying to be cocky or anything, but I said I just feel like I know it's possible, but I said I feel like I can't be beat." And so I make it to the semifinals, and I wrestled somebody I had wrestled earlier in the year who I had a pretty close match with, but he beat me. That I thought I think I could beat him because earlier that year I had lost a bunch of matches. I think I was the highest amount of losses finalist that year. I had a good year, but not an expected to win year. So anyway, I get to semifinals. I win in overtime against the person that beat me, and he's tough. He's tough as nails. His name is Tony Roby. Shout out to Tony Roby, Coach Roby. He was tough, and I beat him in the semifinals, and then I beat somebody else who I'd wrestled earlier in the year as well, Dan Wernsberger, who I believe is coaching at. Where did I see his name somewhere? Anyway, Dan Wernsberger from Michigan State, and I beat him in the finals, and it was the year that nobody could have expected.
So
Nobody
nice
saw
seat
it
to
coming.
come.
Yeah, it's one of those things. But it was a year that I kind of turned a corner athletically, particularly mentally. And I became a much better wrestler.
Got a winner's mind frame. So what was the peak of your career? How did that kind of happen? Your wrestling career, I'm sorry.
I would say those 3 years, from 95 to 97, those 3 scholastic years where I was an All-American all 3 years, 2-time finalist.
And you won the...
I won it 1 year, second 1 year, third 1 year.
So you were first, second, third in those 3 years? Okay. So Uncle Byron, what did you go to school for?
So I went to school I wanted to be a teacher.
You mentioned that.
Right. So right from I have thoughts in first grade, literally. I can remember, I see it in my mind, of sitting in class and the teacher was writing like math on the board. And I've had the feeling that nobody was getting it. And I was thinking to myself, if she would do it like this, everybody would get it.
When you were in first grade?
When I was in first grade. I remember it very clearly. If she would teach it like this, everybody would get it.
He still says that now.
If they would just say it like that.
Yeah, then everybody would get it. So I've always had teaching as a thought, right? But I didn't know exactly what I wanted to teach. And so I was pretty good at math. So I went in as a math major. And I was like, I'm going to teach math. I'm going to be a math teacher. This is so great. And then I took my first math final. It was like a department final. And I remember getting the final and we're all getting it. Like,
And this is what grade?
I was in
This is college.
college.
You're already in
my
college.
first year of
Okay.
college. So math, I'm in college now. Hey, I'm gonna be a teacher. I'm gonna be a math teacher. This is great. Mom is
So
all
all-
happy about it. Yeah, you can be a math teacher.
Yeah,
so
we
good.
come from educators.
Right. So then.
Your mom was a teacher, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Early childhood, right?
Right. So
Her dad was too.
Really? I didn't know that.
That's why our cousin Toy, who was New Jersey Teacher of the Year and has her own consulting, shout out to cousin Toy, she has a foundation in Grandpa's name.
Okay.
And a part of that is our education
Lineage.
Yeah. So I went and I took this first department final, right? And I remember looking at it, being like, "Are they serious?" And there was a lady who she was like in her 30s or something. She might have been 29 or something. I thought, oh, she's old.
She's old.
Right? So she was in the class. She was older. She was doing it as a second thing. And she had the test, and she started flipping through it, and she had an A, easy A. And she started laughing because of the challenge of it. The
Like how hard it was.
It was so hard. The teacher left the room, and we couldn't even cheat. We were like,
It was so hard you could not cheat.
I was like, what in the world?
How
What is
would we
this?
cheat on this?
Did we go over this? Like, do you know what this is? I was like, oh, yeah, it's hieroglyphics. Just figure it out.
Definitely hard to
Right. So I did that, and I ended up with a decent grade in that. But the final she was like, well, if the final is low, we'll just take your grade in class. I'm like, okay, that's good.
Thank you.
Right? If your final's good, then your grade will go up. And I'm like, okay. So after that, I literally came back to the dorm room, and my friend, who's ended up being my best man at my wedding, we were real good friends. We went to high school together, college together, we taught together. And he goes like, hey, you could be a PE major. I was like,
Yes, I can.
the next day
Yes,
I was in the office switching. I'm like, I'm doing what I want to do. Like, I'm not going to do something because you're going to make me. And so I went into physical education, and I did physical education. I have a health minor. And then I ended up getting several certifications, but like I was like,
Are
You
you
have,
thankful?
you have a master's degree in
educational leadership.
education leadership.
Yeah,
Are you
That's
thankful
like-
you made that switch?
absolutely.
That's like low key what I did. I was like, I want to be a math teacher. I took Calc 1 and I was like, I'm done now. I'm done. What is Calc 2 gonna look like? This is weird. That was too much.
It's definitely like, and then like, but to be a PE teacher, it is, like once I got into it, it was totally me. And I remember taking the classes and people like kind of, when you're in school, it's funny when you're in college, like the history and English, you take classes with everybody and then you're, sometimes just PE and sometimes everybody. And so you're in this education class and all the history teachers and science teachers are kind of like making fun of you. They're like, oh, what do you do?
PE.
Yeah, PE. The best is when you start teaching PE and then they're like taking these piles of papers home. And I'm like, all right, I'll see you later. You don't have to do anything. I'm like,
no, I don't.
do you remember when you were in college and you signed up for those classes, the science classes? I wasn't there to tell you don't do it. So don't blame me. I'll see you later. But yeah, so I was physical education. I love it. It's like,
It's totally you.
yeah, it's a super passion of mine. So PE, health, minors.
And you were a dean at one point as well.
Yes. So I probably after about 7 years of teaching, I started thinking more, not about my ability to teach anymore. Because by then I felt like I was more of an expert in the field and I was growing quite a bit and just really diving in deeper to teaching methods and how we could, what best practice and all these different things, right? So I started getting there and then it started making me look deeper at the whole picture of school. And as the more I looked at it, the more friends I had in different departments, I started being like, well, how are we going to help these children? Like I was in PE and I felt like I was touching lives and coaching and touching lives and just really involved with people. And so I think part of it, in part, is like from different experiences I've had with students. This one young man, I've had several students actually be murdered, who I loved, and that made me start to look at the whole picture more. And how can I help? And how can I be better? And then so that's when I went and got my master's degree in in educational leadership, thinking I'm going to be a principal.
Okay, so
I
that
wanna
was
be a
what you were going
principal.
for at that
I'm
time.
gonna definitely be a principal because I can affect cultural change. And if I can do this, then I'll be able to really help. And I need to help in systems and help with teachers and cultivate teaching and good teaching and what it means to have good relationship with families. And I always told myself that I want to work at a school where I feel like students actually want and need me. So I never wanted to work at this school. Like somebody one time, I was at a wrestling meet and there was a coach retiring from this one school, New Trier High School, which he was like, hey, you should try to apply for this job. Well, New Trier, this area in Illinois is probably one of the wealthiest areas in Illinois. I think that at the time, the average home price, the average was like 1.5 million in Winnetka.
So you just didn't. You're like, I'm not
I'm
needed
going,
there.
I'm not going over there. Those not my people. They didn't go to the brook. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, yeah. So I always wanted to be in a school where it was more like me. As a matter of fact, in my interview at the school where I currently am, whatever, I said one of the things that I bring to the table is like, the biggest thing I bring to the table is these students are me. This is me and my family and my friends and all that I grew up with. I'm not coming from some other community, coming in here like, I don't know or I don't get it. So then I became, in that quest, I was a dean for a while.
Okay.
And I did that for 12 years.
Was that stressful?
No, actually it was very natural.
Really? It was just another one of those things like, yep, this is what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, it's fun. Like at first I was too tough, and then they were like, "Hey, you need to back off. You like hammering everybody." I'm like, okay, so then I like backed way off, and then I started to understand more of how to develop the relationship. Really, when you're a dean of students, you become you have a small group of students that come and see you all the time, and that's
They're always in trouble.
They're always in trouble. So that's your clientele. So you feel like, I work with them, and the ones who are real good, they come in, then you just blast them. and you never see them again. Mm-hmm. But the ones that you see all the time, it's like those are the people.
You build a
you want.
relationship
I
with them.
remember the day that I realized that my dad deals with teenage girls for a living. Like,
And-
there is nothing I can do or say that all the teenage girls dealt with for years I've not done.
Like,
I
you were
remember
not getting
realizing
anything
that,
past him, huh?
Like, my dad said something to me, and I remember just feeling so foolish. Like, how did he know I did that? And I was like, this is what he does for a living. Like, we eat off of him dealing with teenage girls. I remember realizing that, like,
You were not about to pull one over on
Yeah.
him, huh? What did you go to school for, Dad?
I didn't know what I was going to school for.
I feel like that's so many 18-year-olds.
Well, I think it is too, and I think it's one of the challenges of graduating high school and starting college. I'm changed in this perspective. I think that young people, and this is what you have done, and
And I'm
your
glad.
third wheel has done, Camille.
She's not a third wheel. Why are you agreeing with her?
I'm not agreeing with her. that's what you all said.
No, we
No,
said
we
she
you made a
no,
verb
we
out
did
of it too.
not.
You third wheel people.
We did not
Anyway.
say
it is a verb.
Anyway, you all did real world experience, and I think that's better for a young person at 18 to 20. Go do real world experience, then decide what you want to do, because now you got some sense of what you want. Because the things that I would have been interested in, I wouldn't have even known. So, for example, when I met your mother, and she was a PT student or preparing for PT school, that never occurred to me as something that maybe
As
I
a
would
job
enjoy
option?
doing, and I think I would have, because not only do we come from teachers, but health and wellness is also something we do. So I started off as a biology major because I was just like, I like science.
Biology major?
I did,
That's interesting.
Yeah, well,
but it was totally random.
And you didn't know where you wanted to go with biology. You're just like, I
Zero.
like biology.
Like, I think, no, it wasn't I like biology. It's like, what do you like? I was like, I like science, I guess. And I was good at science and math. I wasn't good at like language arts, those types of things at that time. But anyway, I met somebody in school who was like, they were in the kinesiology, and I was like, what's that? And they told me, I was like, that's what I'm doing. And I changed and I became a kinesiologist. I have a bachelor's in kinesiology with an emphasis in kinesiology.
Okay.
So for most people usually the follow-up is, well, what's that?
What's kinesiology?
Yeah, so it's the study of human movement. So it's similar to a psychology degree or a political science degree or an English degree. You don't go
Or
out and
you're like,
find a kinesiology job, right? I'm looking for that kinesiology spot you got.
It's not like law
But-
school or teaching.
But it's enough of a foundation for pre-med, or if you wanted to do dentistry or PE or ergonomics, which is what my career ended up in, or any number. It's pretty wide net for topics that you might want to do.
So you ended up teaching too. Did you not have to
did.
get another, like a teaching degree?
At that time, it was an alternative certification process.
Okay.
So I was also a PE teacher in the Oklahoma City Public Schools, but it was through an alternative program for
So it wasn't like you had
adults.
to go to school for more years or
No,
anything?
not at all. I just had to meet some requirements that I met at the time.
What did you think about teaching PE?
I love teaching PE.
So he
And-
taught high
and-
school.
Yeah, so we're different. So he's better with teenagers. I'm not. I'm better with children. He's not that he's bad, but I'm just saying my sweet spot is third grade. What's your sweet spot grade?
Ninth and up.
Ninth and up. See, he's like he's like he wasn't like ninth and up. He was ninth and up. Like he's even
Like,
got
do
a
not
bad.
give me anything below
anything
that.
under 14-year-olds.
Probably 11th and 12th is probably my best.
But like, give me third grade. So as a PE teacher, I love teaching. It's too bad that it's not my wife and I made a decision that we were going to do one income. She was going to stay home. I was going to work, and it just didn't work for us financially.
They
but
do not pay teachers
I
enough. Can we please complain
loved
about that some more?
PE teaching. I would go teach right now. If it made sense, I would go teach right now in PE, in
Really?
elementary PE. Oh,
And
absolutely.
that was just fun for you.
I loved it.
It's good to be the hero of the school.
When you're the PE
You are,
teacher,
yeah.
it seems like it.
And it's
Our
not.
PE teacher
It's
at our
not
school,
because it's not because you're fun. Because I'm not. I mean, I can be a lot of fun, but it wasn't because I was the fun teacher. Because I'm extremely disciplined and structured, and we're going to do it just like this.
Yes,
which
you are.
I think children love that. You said that a little quick. Said a
I was just
little quick.
acknowledging- I
Slow
was just
down with your
acknowledging.
responding. So, yeah, I really enjoy teaching PE, elementary PE. I have a lot of fun with that.
So then you had like some transition jobs in between, but the job that you ended up with, did use your major?
Well, I coached wrestling for a little while, so there's some use of kinesiology concepts there. But then I did some retail work, and then I did teaching. And then what's interesting is when I didn't do that, my pastor at the time recommended I go into sales. And I did better at it than, I didn't even have a lot of support for that career choice, but I turned out to do kind of good at it. Like, okay, I got this. At the same time, because I had this grant at the school I was teaching at that I had earned, and I did really well at managing it, so well that the director contacted me and just say, hey, what are you doing? I said, I'm selling. They're like, would you help us? We really liked how you did your work. And so it was called Schools for Healthy Lifestyles. I don't know if it's even in existence, but it was a program that I helped. And so I was kind of doing these two things. It was kind of a side hustle, but I really enjoyed it. It kept me involved in education, kept me involved in wellness. And then the short version of the next story is my wife saw an ad in the paper for the job that, interestingly, they had sent her a postcard to solicit her business as a physical therapist.
Oh, interesting.
And she said, oh, I remember this. And she took my resume, cleaned it up, updated it, sent it according to the instructions.
Did she tell you?
Everything. Yeah, I didn't know, but I was at the stage in my career in my work life where I was like, I'm looking for my next opportunity, but I wasn't really looking. I was just kind of sitting around
I'm looking for it.
showing up at work and going through the motions. But so anyway, she found it. I interviewed. I was in love. It was called Relax the Back, which is where I worked for almost 18 years. Starting off in Oklahoma City, then to Southern California, and then the corporate office before I retired from there.
So you were doing sales there, right?
Yeah, so I started off in sales, then management, then I went to the corporate office as the corporate trainer.
So y'all have both very recently done something totally different than you've kind of been doing all your lives as far as career. Do y'all want to talk about that?
So basically, I am working now. I'm still doing teaching, right? But so maybe over the past 5 years, I've been asked to help direct the our educational program for our whole church. So it's international, it's all over the world, and I'm doing that full time, which is a lot different than teaching PE.
I believe it.
So I've been doing it for the last 5 years. So all my friends all the people I teach with at Leiden, where I've been teaching, they would be like, hey, nobody's phone rings more than yours. They'd be like, dun, 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 dun.
You had two jobs, basically.
Yeah, I was doing two jobs. They're like, dun, 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 dun. And I'm like, yeah, I come to work to get away from work. Right? So I was just doing a lot of counseling and and I would go visit different localities and do teacher seminars and help them to, but basically we're shifting from the idea of how we can grow our schools or how we can make our schools with the ability to grow. Before it was just homeschool, and it was like a homeschool co-op.
Collective.
Collective, a homeschool co-ops at each place. And every place kind of did their own little twist on it. And then so I said, well, if we're going to be able to really educate our children, then we need to find more resources. And really the more resources are each other, and we need to be more connected. So then it was like, okay, let's all teach the same things. Let's all do the same things. And so as we started to do more of the same things, then it started to be needing more management. And then so the more I managed it, the more
you managed it.
the more I managed it, the more you're going in and in and in. And then, but I feel like we're at a really, really good place.
Okay.
I think there's a couple things that that we're going to do next that are going to be like tremendous. But once that's in place and rolling, like we're going to be in a really good place.
So you're happy with the progress that's been made?
Oh yeah, even over my first year to my second year was tremendous.
Really?
Like at the beginning we had no real structure. The structure was you just do what I say, right? And we went from that to me writing a code of conduct. Like we had nothing.
We didn't have one of
Right.
those.
So I'm writing a code of conduct. I'm putting in all these different things. And like, do you have a safety plan at your school? No, we don't. We just, does anybody have first aid? No, we don't have
no first aid.
Well, maybe we should everybody should get first aid certified just in case something. Yeah, that's a good idea, right? So like we started putting those kind of things in place that in a high school or a school would be totally normal. And so basically we're taking things that are good schooling principles for running a system of schooling or education. We're taking those principles, we're bringing them to us, but the total difference of what we're doing and what is being done out there is the ability to have a real opportunity for advancement, for barriers are broken down. It actually is the most honest schooling that you can have.
I like that.
Most schooling is very tracked and very systematic, and there's a lot of deep issues that run in society that are in the schools that are never going to be dealt with ever. Even though
And as a result, the children are prepared for public life, having dealt
Absolutely.
with. So there's a term that we've just talked about recently in that book by Dr. Robin DiAngelo on white fragility, the concept that somebody could be fragile when it comes to certain topics.
Absolutely.
Because they just don't ever have to build a tolerance for dealing with that topic. And it's not just, her book is dealing with racism, but it's not just limited to that. You can have fragility in any area.
Right.
And our goal in school is to have a more holistic, and that's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but we really have a whole child approach that says, and this is your concept, I'll just say here, actually our school, we say, doesn't end until you're 20 years old. 12th grade is not the end. We have other aspects of education that if you want a diploma from us, then you need to complete these additional 2 years of training and development, and there's other things that we do. So,
and it actually the way that it's set up now, the way that we're set up now is actually the ideal way to deal with the whole person, right? Like in a regular public school, you don't have real deep connections. You don't have times where you can.
difficult. You can get them, but it's difficult.
That's true, because I'm taking that statement back. Take it back. Okay, I'm saying the depth of connections that we have is like so much deeper. You're like next to family.
Right.
And I'm not saying that there's not, I mean, like I know from being a teacher that there's some students who've looked at me and like, are you going to take me home? Like you're my dad.
But the public school system is not set up for that to happen.
That's
like
right.
you're going outside of the system
Right.
to make that connection.
Like
if
technically,
you
you're not
just
even allowed to do
follow
that,
it-
right?
Right.
If you just follow it, you're not getting that.
Right. It actually, the way the system is set up, it's structured perfectly for what's happening. Right.
What's happening to our children.
Right. If you're low income, you stay relatively low income unless you're talented, that talent gets pulled out. Right. With all this school choice stuff, what they're doing is draining out the leaders in certain schools and then putting them in charter schools or putting them in private schools or whatever. And so now at these schools that are desperate for leadership and high level talent, not that there's not talent there, but the leadership is getting pulled out so strongly that it's hard to perform. So like with us, what we're doing is we're actually deep diving into that, talking about it, and really creating real access. And that, to me, that's the difficult thing about public school is you don't really have access. And the less money you have, the less access you have. And the higher you go up, the more there's there's more access, but still there's not all access. And our thing is to break down every barrier so that there would be access for all of our children, right?
I had to watch a video in one of my early childhood classes I was taking, and it was two young men talking about their schools, and they walk through they kind of give you a walkthrough of their school, and it's ridiculous and honestly so unfair the amount of opportunities this one young man has for no other reason than he was born into it. He has so many chances, so many connections, so many opportunities. There's this program, there's that program. They do this. They have these machines. They have these devices. The other young man, born into it. They both love learning. They both love school. They both are intelligent, but the walls are full of graffiti and there's one computer and the access is just literally not there.
And then
And that's a repeatable,
absolutely.
like that, you could do observational study. Actually, one of my favorite books when I was teaching was A Framework for Understanding Poverty by Ruby Payne. That's a great book. There's some criticism about it, but I can say that you don't have to read her book. You can see what it's in her book over and over and over and over and over. There's a real problem.
It's systemic. That's the only way to
really
describe
is.
it.
Yeah, it actually has
it's
to.
structural.
It has to be there to maintain the
Society.
fabric of what's going on, right? If you just removed it and gave everyone access to everything, then people who weren't supposed to move up are moving up all of a sudden.
Right. And the people that maybe shouldn't be in some of the places they are, elevated places, would be.
Get pulled down, right?
Well, Dad, what you're doing is actually kind of connected to what he's doing. In a way, y'all are kind of working together. You want to talk about what you're doing now?
So I think you're talking about Real Black Excellence. So Real Black Excellence is a nonprofit organization that exists to help communities, help organizations, businesses, families, individuals work as a community that recognizes gifting and helps to protect or acknowledge their autonomy. So we're a grassroots organization, and when I came here last year, it was already here and working, and so we do things that are for the community. We do things that connect resources to the community. I'm thankful for a relationship that we have with the mayor here, for example, that allows us to be able to share resources and help make sure that the underserved in our community are being cared for. And as we said, as so that communities can be developed, because we think that a part of having access to resources requires or necessitates a community to have that, right?
Absolutely.
Because as we say in our
Statement? Mission statement?
mission statement, I kept thinking motto, in our mission statement, inside of every community, you have gifts. Those gifts have to be able to operate in their space autonomously. They can't be encroached upon. You can't oppress the gift. But that gift can't oppress my gift either. And that's how communities work. And when you look in history at successful groups of people, that's what they did. They found a way to bring their community together and to share their resources, whether the resource was capital in terms of dollars or acts in kind or just your person. Those things work together, and that's what we do.
So it's, again, creating access for everyone.
100%.
I think that's beautiful.
A lot of the idea of segregation and racism and all these different things is actually to not give access, to not allow you to have the same access that everyone else has, right? Like, just the most basic example is when you see colored drinking fountain, right? There's a nicer drinking fountain, and
Right.
there's this one. You can't have from this nice drinking fountain. It's just access to the other one. So it's like, how do you get that access?
I'm super glad that we got to go to our church schools. That was great.
I feel like a huge advantage. I mean, of course, there was things we were missing.
As if we felt behind about it, but honestly, when I went from our high school straight into college, there was not a
It was
problem.
smooth.
And usually most of us end up top levels in our classes. We're not behind like that.
And especially with the
And
way,
you're saying that because people would tend to look on you and think, oh, they're probably
Oh, yeah,
sheltered.
they're probably homeschooled. They probably don't.
they probably
homeschooled.
don't know, but it's been a benefit.
Well, again, that's why I say I'm for, and he has helped to build into our school, that when you graduate, we're going to send you, actually, before you do any college work, go do some real world experiences. So you've been to places in the world, that lots of young people your age never get to do, that I think is valuable. I think for the African American community, we don't travel much. I've traveled a lot, and when I go places, we are not there, which is not. It's not.
That is not who's on the plane with you.
And that's fine. I'm not saying that we have to travel, but there are some tremendous lessons learned by seeing other parts of the world, particularly in understanding how certain gifts work. So
I mean, you learn about yourself, right?
100%. So, for example, when we went to the Philippines, one of the marketing signs for one of the tourist marketing signs says it says something like, in the Philippines we don't say hi, how are you, we say have you eaten yet, because food, fellowship, hospitality is so much a part of their culture,
so
and
central
respect
to
is
it.
so much a part of their culture that when you go there, you just feel at home. They're just a really, really welcoming, loving people. Well, we see that, for example, how many of your viewers are going to know what I'm talking about when you get a telemarketing call or you get a customer service representative? Many of them are Filipino. It's because they're natural
good at it.
service. It's a part of the culture to be respectful, to speak respectfully, to be polite, to be kind, to be inviting. It's just built into the culture. And that's why companies find themselves saying hire from these places. And I think that gives perspective on your own self and where you fit in a larger world.
Like, what are we good at? What can we learn from?
I think that's a part of the major access. One of the things you think about low income communities is they really have a hard time being able to afford getting out of their community. So you get so locked into your community. Like, okay, we're from Chicagoland area, right? So I've been all over the south side of Chicago a lot, more recently especially. But like, there's people who are from the neighborhood who never leave the neighborhood. Everything's in there.
We have children that we
Right.
teach like
They
that.
said that I never left my neighborhood block.
Yeah, you never, I'm from, I'm from this street to this street, and then I go as far south as this street, and I go as far north as this street, right? You just kind of boxed in. And really, what we've been able to accomplish in our older years is basically giving access to our children to go hear and see how they're doing this. Go hear how you can see how you do this, and then you can start to better understand the world.
So it's not wrong to be from your neighborhood.
I'm not saying that.
Oh, I know you're not, but
Okay.
all I'm saying is it's not wrong to be from there, but there's some value that you gain from seeing other parts of the world.
Right.
And if somebody wants to stay in their hood, I got no shade. We're just saying there are some inherent disadvantages in staying and never seeing
Right.
how you can bring your gift or use other gifts or other resources to help your community.
There's other things.
It's just a way to. It literally, like, redlining was a way to make sure that people stayed the same. They never got outside of.
And they would pass that thinking down generationally just by
They'd put it in them, and then they wouldn't
just
have
by
to work.
creating a system or a structure that can kind of force people into a box.
Put a school in a neighborhood that runs the same way, and then just
Perpetuate.
right instead
oppression.
of. I'm not saying that you need to leave the neighborhood. I'm saying it just there's systems that have been created to make it that you don't have as much access outside to the world.
So, Brother Steph's question: should the school run the community, or should the community run the school?
Exactly.
he always
Right.
says.
Exactly. That's what we're
right.
talking about right now. It should be the community that runs the school.
Right.
And that's that's no shade on all the great teachers that are in the schools. I mean, if you're a teacher, you're a great person.
Literally, I believe it.
You've chosen a profession because you're passionate about helping the community.
Honorable profession.
But if we take the position that it's the state's job to educate the children, that turns the model upside down, and that's a part of the problem. And while a lot of people would credit John D. Rockefeller with making compulsory education with the goal of creating a model of employment later for his own social investment. In the same token, I have to give him credit for recognizing that there had to be something better for the children than child labor,
Right.
and child ignorance and poverty as well. I'm not taking one side or the other. I'm just saying both things happen, but extracting children from the need of the community, as we talked about earlier about our parents and knowing who our parents were, you went on to say other people knew who our parents were. When I was a teacher, I could tell you who was going to succeed and who not succeed in school by parent involvement.
Absolutely.
And the parent could be a single parent. It didn't matter. If they were involved, that child does
gonna
well in
do well.
school every single time. That's somebody who says, I'm going to take my child's education in the hands of my community. And that's what makes for successful education. And more importantly, that leads to the breaking of oppressive structures
Right.
that divide people and keep people from their being community and keep their gifts hidden, keep them from having autonomy.
One of the things about schools is like, so first let me say, I have worked with some of the best teachers, period. Like one of my friends who's a teacher, who's now a professor at Northern, I would be like, yeah, he's the teacher.
The teacher.
Because he's so good and he's like so deep and so profound at just the simple things about delivering and holding and the staff that I taught with PE at Leiden, like unbelievable teachers. The way they think, the way we work together, the depth and knowledge that they have about physical fitness and health and wellness, it's unbelievable, right? So I'm not trying to, history teachers that I know that I have like super good friends and I'm like, they're like, I've sat in their classes, they're amazing teachers, right? So I'm not saying anything about teachers, right? This is totally the structure that's in place.
Teachers really understand this and feel the pressure like, nah, y'all ain't gonna put all this on me. You ain't, if you're not invested, I
Right.
can't only drag your child so far.
That's right.
So, I talked about TikTok earlier, these social media platforms where you see, for example, the assault of teachers. Now, I know that some teachers get rogue and people have done things that are wrong. Okay, that's a part of the human family, but the level with which children are allowed to be disrespectful in the classroom has reached a level that it's not the teacher's fault, it's the community's fault.
Right. Right.
The community is going to have to rise up together, and this is a part of what Real Black Excellence is saying, is no, if that child's out of line, we have to step in and fix that. Don't expect the teachers to do that.
To even be able to, they have a whole class they're dealing with, right?
It's the collective, right? Like how do you, my last 2 years I was on the Equity and Justice Leadership Team. And on the Equity and Justice Leadership Team, one of the main things that we talked about was, we talked about how do we have students' voice, parents' voice, administrators' voice, teachers' voice, everybody in the community, the whole collective's voice,
Should have a
that
voice.
we can bring down systems and create systems that actually help to allow our students to have access.
That being said, and he didn't mention it, but I know it's included, the local business owners, the
Yes.
local police department, fire department, the clergy, like every member of the community has something, the local grandmother, the local mom, everybody has a part to play in creating this, system that would improve, again, the oppressive environment that many people find themselves in.
And the thing that I found that's interesting, just because I've been around with different people and coaching and talking, like at some of these schools that they have tremendous wealth, they have major issues too.
Really?
They have people who are, one, the pressure is so high, the suicide rates or the wellness rates are just
The pressure to
unbelievable.
succeed is
to
so
succeed,
high.
to be successful is so high that the depression rates are higher. The drug use is like through the roof.
Really?
Yeah, the abuse of body is like through the roof. And nothing's being pulled in because
At the height of the OxyContin, what they called, it was called epidemic because it affected wealthy communities.
right.
Otherwise, it would have been, a criminal problem if it was in the low-income communities. But because it was in the wealthy communities, and predominantly so, that's why, to your point, this is a human problem. This is not just limited to low-income communities.
It's not us and them.
In some ways, the low-income communities, as Brother Stephen Hargrave says in his book, they're at the advantage because they know that they're under.
At least they know they're down there.
They know that they're not just down there, but they know that they're in an oppressive environment. Whereas a part of the trick of oppressive environments and power structures is to allow people who are not a part of that community to think they're delivered when they can say, at least I'm not a part of this community. And they think, hey, I'm free from this problem. And that's not how the human family is supposed to work. Shameless plug, Brother Steph has got a documentary coming out very soon on the oneness of men. And the point is to explore and to reach a resolution around the fact that when we deal with any kind of oppression, if one is oppressed, all are oppressed. Nobody's free until
Unless
we're all
everybody's
free.
Right.
And so those are some of the things that kind of drive us, whether it be in the classroom or community or whatever it is. Those are the things that we're interested in.
And thankfully you are, because I feel like that's what helped us be, like the fact that our parents care and are involved. I mean, that's how we could care and be involved, and they're talking about it. It's important. It's in the home. It's actually
Being a daddy.
It's actually taken them away from us at times, but it's been worth it because of what we've learned, what it's opened up our minds to, and what it's given us a passion for. Now we're teachers. Now we want to help in the community. Now we're just looking like, what can we do? How can we make a difference?
That's right.
I'm curious if there was a top thing that each of you could say. What would you say is like a super important thing about raising children? Your top tip, or
I think, well, for me, I think the number one thing before anything is when you're married, that you must love your spouse so good that your children see it. If you don't, if there's dissension with parents, then it's so hard to do anything with your children.
Why?
Because the children start to jump into it. They pick sides. They start dividing. But if you have such a love for your, like I would always be like, okay, who does daddy love the most? You know, and then who does daddy love the most? Mom. Who does daddy love second most?
Also, Mom.
You know, I'm working down the
it's
fifth.
like the most boring ritual.
We get down to
The most boring ritual ever.
right?
We already know.
But that, like, and you know, every year at our anniversary, I tell a story how we got married. Oh, this is how we got married, our wedding day, and da-da. But like, I think our children need to know those stories so well that they say, we're gonna be like our parents.
That's what we want.
Right? We want to be like them. We want to be in love like them, and that then, I think that fosters good behavior.
I think that's really good. For me, I would say be really, really consistent. So if you say something, do that. If you don't want them to do something, you got to not. Now, I'm thinking especially early.
Younger children.
Yeah, but consistency is really, really important because children don't do well when they don't know what to expect.
And I mean, if you start that in the younger, then you've kind of built something in for when they're older, right?
100%. Because if you don't, life will teach them that consequences come, but it won't be nice. And I have the chance to teach them about consequences nicely.
A little more low key,
Yeah,
right?
so I think that I would say, just off the top, consistency is so important. You have to model the behavior, you have to expect it, and you can expect, I think that you can expect high from your children.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you got to be consistent about it. But that also means consistent in your praise when they do well, consistent when you're correcting them, consistent when they need to be punished for their actions, consistent with your love, consistent with your time and your to me, consistency is
You know what else?
critical.
Mom and dad were like super, super good at this, and I think we do it so naturally that we don't even think that it's a thing. We teach our children to advocate for themselves, right? Like I remember going into kindergarten, and my mom being like, "Your name is Byron. If someone calls you Brian, you say that you're Byron." And of course, the first day of school, Brian Benion.
Benion.
You know, I'm in kindergarten. My name is Byron Benion.
Oh, that's really cute.
You know, we'd go to
concept.
You go to the restaurant, like,
Yes,
right? We go
Dad
out to
made
eat.
us order when
and I'd be
we-
like,
but
well, and the waiter would come and look at me and be like, what do they want?
And I
I'd
would
be
look
like,
at my dad, and Dad would look back at me.
I don't know. You'll have to ask them. You know, where some children, they'd be like, what do they want? Oh, they want a pancake and a piece of sausage. Where they'd be,
You know, that happened recently where we were eating somewhere and I had Ezra order his own. You know, I'm working it out. What are you thinking? I'm making sure he's not trying to get surf and turf or anything like that. But I'm just like, you know, like, hey, but now that we got it on this section of the menu, like, what do you want? All right, how you going to ask? Okay, great. And another person saw, and they said to me, they were like, that is so good. And I won't say who. And this person said that when they take out their nieces or nephews, we'll leave it there, said that they don't even order. Teenage niece and nephews,
Really?
young adults,
I've
that like
seen
they,
it. I've
like
seen
they
it.
don't. They're
It was
like
the weirdest thing to me.
and you know, you remember this in Sunday school class preparation. As soon as you knew how to read, like really read,
We had to get our own Bible
as
verses.
far as learning a memory verse, I was done, and I was done to the extent. This is
you
back
would
to
leave us up
advocating
there floundering.
that, like, if you get up there and you don't know it, I won't be able to cue you. You know, for God, sola, like I can't help you. You are on your own, and so you better have this down. You better pick it, figure it out, memorize it, do this, and that's a part of self-advocating as well.
Absolutely.
I
I thought I
felt
was being genius, but what you're trying to say is it was just built
it's
in.
just natural.
Mom and
I was
dad
like,
did
yeah,
that.
I had
That's
this
such a good
good
idea.
parenting idea.
Yeah, mom and dad did that all the time.
I'm not.
That was one of the things I felt like mom would be like, you don't let. One of the things about black parents that people they never add this all together. Okay, is they will tell you before you just go to school, don't let nobody touch you. Don't let anybody put no hands on you, right? And so nobody ever draws the whole conclusion of that. I remember talking to some colleagues of mine who were not black, and I'm like, you know why they say that, right? They're like, no, it makes no sense. Like, why are they telling them to fight? If somebody I'm like, because my parents grew up when people were being
They
lynched.
literally went to segregated
Yeah,
schools.
they were being lynched. So they saying, don't let somebody do that.
They lynch you, please.
Yeah. So if you know, but that's advocating for yourself. I will never forget my principal in middle school was like, yeah, he was a black man, wonderful principal. I mean, amazing principal. I wouldn't have been able to tell you that in seventh
At that
grade.
time.
Right? I was just talking a lot. Right? He was like, young man. I'm like, you better not put your hands on me. I will get my dad up here. He was like,
My bad.
he was like, no, I didn't put my hands on you like that. So yeah, I like, I will have my dad come up here. So you better back up. Now my dad would have
definitely say that.
my dad would have came up and beat me.
That's what
He didn't know that though. He didn't know that.
No. That's what you didn't know. That's what you didn't know. Because they'd have been up in there like.
I knew I was trying to call the bluff. I knew. I'm not
You were going to see
stupid.
the principal's going to go for it.
I'm like,
Because their respect for authority would have trumped.
Oh,
You'd be
yeah.
like, oh, you mean you disrespected this man? Like, sir, we are sorry. I remember getting in trouble, and Dad gets quiet
Yes,
when
he
he gets
does.
upset.
and
He
that
doesn't
bad-
like
that
he don't
bogus
blast.
smile.
He doesn't
The
yell.
He
bogus
just
smile.
starts.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Okay, we'll take care of it.
Yes. And I remember being in the 6th grade. I was doing bad in school, and he just gets tighter and tighter lipped, quieter and quieter. Yes, thank you. So yeah, that's what we had.
I'm interested if, when you were having children and think about having children, whatever, if you had any intentional thoughts towards what am I going to do to raise my black children to be a part of the struggle, or what being my children are mixed, how am I going to help them cope with that? Not cope with that like it's depression
thing,
or
but
something.
just how do we do
But
it?
like, how am I going to have them handle themselves? Like,
How am I going to raise them to know what it means to be black,
think
too?
about that when you were thinking about your children?
I know for us, it was so I went to your grandparents' house and asked, I was going to, do my part, like, I'd like to marry your daughter, this is what I want to do. And her Grammy was like, yeah, right. And Papa was like, I was like, oh, serious? I'm like, okay, yeah, son, whatever. And he was like, what are you going to do with your children? Which was a very real thing.
You
At
have
the
to think
time,
about
I
it.
was like a little taken back, but I had to quickly give him an answer, right? And I was like, you know what? First of all, I'm going to make sure that they live and grow up in a space that's going to accept them for who they are. And they're going to be able to choose to be themselves or themselves. They don't have to choose to right? That's my thing.
Mom is going to applaud you on that.
That's my thing.
For themselves.
So they get to choose to be themselves, right? Like, so they can actively work to be who they are. Basically, it's the whole idea of access, right? If I live in a certain area, they're going to say you have to choose, or you have to choose this side or this side. And I want to be in a space where they could be who they were. Like, my thought was, when we grew up in Bolingbrook, it was so strange. I feel like Bolingbrook was a tremendous community that was super diverse, and you never really felt, I don't know how you felt, but I never really felt that there was any any barriers
That was
or
another thing I
walls.
wanted to ask you about. Did you grow up with any racial tension?
Not when I was in high school, middle school. Like it was like we were all boys. It wasn't, and there I had friends who were, their parents were culturally diverse, right? Like they were coming from two different cultures, and my friends were there, and it never was a thing. I had friends who were Puerto Rican, who were black, who were white, and we all ran together. It was no problem. We never had dating was all around, mixed, same, whatever. But so to answer your question, that was my
Your idea of being proactive.
Yeah.
What am I gonna do with my black mixed children?
Right, they're
raise
gonna
them in a
live
diverse-
we're gonna be in a space where they can.
The fact that you grew up in such a space, did that ever make it a challenge for you to identify white supremacy because where you were, you didn't experience it?
No.
Or that was something separate?
No, okay. When I say that it wasn't there, I'm talking about amongst my peer groups.
Okay.
It wasn't there. Of course, there was things in the school. There was things that took place that maybe I would have felt. I know when we first moved to Bolingbrook, it was terrible. Everybody's like, "Oh, you white? Like, what's wrong with you? You coming from here and you moving here. Like, you play the trombone. What's wrong with you? They like dogging. Like, I'm an athlete who's like, you play soccer. Who plays soccer? You ain't black. You playing soccer. I'm like, that's all we had. What am I supposed to do? I'm too fat to play football. Whatever. But so yeah, I felt it in the press of the people who were black were like, you're not black enough, right? And then as we grew up as friends together, then all that melted away quickly, and it just started. We start to trade with each other in the currency of personal relationship, right? So.
I think for me as a parent, to answer your question, I just knew when you were a baby, I just knew at some point in time where you were little, she's going to face a world that's going to treat her a certain way once they see her. And so we just made a conscious decision to prepare you for that, knowing that while you were going to be you, and we were never going to deny any part of your culture or your heritage from either side of your family, of your lineage, that the society you lived in was going to look at you as black, and we had to prepare you for that. And so that was some of what we did. And we didn't do it like we're doing it now. Like there's a greater emphasis now. We have a better understanding of how to do all of that. But starting off, we just knew this is how you're going to be looked at in the world, and you can't afford to go in the world surprised. I would add that in the world that there's this fallacy that if a black person marries somebody of European descent, that there is some potential challenges to blending, the families that doesn't exist between different European descendant groups. If an Irishman marries a German person, they have to blend their cultures too, because you meet an Irish person, they do not think they're German. And Germans don't think they're Irish. And I know both of those kinds of people. I've been to those countries. They don't see themselves as being identical. The concept of them being white and being the same is a uniquely American institution. That's not traditional.
Absolutely.
And so those people, now if they want to identify as a white person, and we can talk about what that is, but if they want to identify, there is that. But that's not their true self. And so I would say that that's kind of the standpoint we took. Oh, we just have to honor your mom's culture, honor my culture in the same home. But because of how the society you lived in was going to receive you, this is how we have to prepare you.
But then wouldn't you
Now,
say...
mom grew up in a very diverse neighborhood, community, a lot of black people, so a lot of black culture she at least was familiar with. I don't want to say she appropriated it, and it was the 90s, right? So there were some parts of it that she would identify with. Your mom I don't think you did this. You should have had her rap.
She would not have done
I
it.
Go to Work by
BDP.
Kool Moe Dee.
She
I was
would
gonna
not
say
have
Kool
done
Moe Dee.
it.
No.
I was like,
You know, like she was.
The
she-
crew was called BDP. She would not have done it.
But she was into our music and our dress and her friends and so in some ways my wife understood the Black culture in some ways. Now she's
Right.
not Black, but there were things that she understood that made teaching our children, it didn't make it hard for us to be able to say, even for her to be like, yeah, that's what you all are going to look like, or that's how the world's going to view you.
Right.
It doesn't mean deny. And I think some of your comments, like, why do you deny? It's like, it's not a denial any more than somebody that's marries somebody from France and somebody Russia. You're not denying either, but you're saying you have both.
But we have to talk about how society looks at us, like you said. And I mean, wouldn't you think that even though there's going to be challenges to blending both, when we're talking about how society looks at us, in general, society doesn't look at Irish and German. They just look at white and Black.
That's right.
So that's like, to me, that's the one thing that would be a unique challenge,
Right.
or could potentially be.
So that's
And
why
mom's not everybody.
that's why I call it a fallacy, because it's rested on a false premise. I'm not saying that there isn't some inherent difficulties, because there are. We live in a society that has propped up a racist power structure. And even the term, actually, it's not even accurate to say racist, because the term racism is built off of a false premise that races actually exist, right?
That's a construct, right?
So we're actually dealing with division or sectism, because it's largely, it turns out it's actually a religious problem. But anyway, that aside, there is some inherent challenges to raising a child who has a parent of European descent, a parent of African American descent, because of the society that we live in and how they're going to have to navigate life. So
Yeah, I definitely think it's important.
can I interrupt you?
Please.
So I think that in all of that, I'll say this: the thing that we thought we could do best, besides saying, hey, the world's going to see you as Black, that's what you got to think. We felt like the one thing we could do, and I think we did right, and that was, most of all, you got to be a Christian. Because if you had that, we knew that that was transcendent of all things.
At least you should be if you're a true Christian.
Yeah, and again, we could have done better at building up other aspects of your understanding, but for sure, we knew you got to be a Christian, because if you had that understanding, that prophetic basis would give you the worldview to navigate life as a Black
Absolutely.
person without denying who you
Absolutely.
are, and having the kind of mind frame that takes in all humanity.
Uncle
Because that's a part of the gift that African Americans take in. That's part of what we do.
And Uncle Brian, I hope you're not losing your thought, but I just want to say, I feel like another thing you all did was made sure that we had plenty of access to literature and became good readers. If you can read, if you know how to read, and as Brother Steph also talks about, not just read books, but read rooms and read people and read situations.
reading, that's right.
Then even if you're not, learning all the things you should be learning at the time, you can. The possibility is there. You've been given the knowledge, you've been given the information, so that when you're shown, when you're taught, when it's revealed to you, it's like, okay, I can learn this, I can grow. And I feel like me and Peyton are finding out a lot that we didn't know, and it's not anybody's fault, but it's just a part of the journey, and we're glad to be on it. We're kind of doing it publicly in front of you all.
I know. I was like, you're seeing such a turbulent time right now.
Yeah.
Yes, I think I was going to say that's what I was going to allude to. Like, we've also given our children tons of access to know who they are, and know what you are. Like, of course, my wife grew up in a town of like 30 people on a farm.
It was 60.
37.
It was 60. Come on now.
60. Okay, 60
is
people.
30.
60 people. It's not a place that
all
you're going to
married.
find.
Diversity.
You're not going to find. There's no diversity, and like
No, it's cornfields or bean fields. That's
Yeah.
how diverse it is.
Right. That's exactly right. So like my children would have grown up going to the farm and riding on combines and riding on tractors, as well as going to the family reunion. Where they're
Family
seeing
barbecue,
all
right?
the auntie, right? You got aunt over here and you got auntie over here. And that is a form of access, giving them like music and books and so they can understand you all can understand who you are and what you come from, right?
I always think it's interesting how little children understand from a very young age how to code switch between those two worlds. Like, okay, I'm over here. This is
Nobody has to
auntie,
teach you. You just
and this is my like. You don't even. It's just it
Just
it's
happens.
just there. Which oftentimes when you get older, you kind of have to unravel that stuff and figure out like, okay, why did I say that? What happened? What is going on here? But yeah,
Why is this my auntie?
yeah, you're just
You
like,
don't
From the
understand.
west
You don't
side.
understand
She's from the
why
west
did
side
I
of Chicago.
get here?
That's why. Oh, she from the west side of Chicago. That's why. She live on Austin.
Well, this podcast ended up being every bit as long as we thought it was. Guarantee you. How long was it? Videographers.
It's like an hour and a half probably.
Okay, not quite 2 hours. I'm amazed. Well, we are so grateful, like I said again, for having them on here. I should ask them if they have a message for your generation or our generation or both before we close out. Something on your heart that you feel like, if I could say this to everybody else that's 50 or almost 50, or if I could say this to young people.
I don't know how you feel, but okay, so we're both preachers. We both preach. I'm a pastor, and so I have always the message of the time. Like, this is what we're going through right now. So we need to make sure we have this. So oftentimes that's how like my mind works. So I generally have a
Like a overarching.
Yeah, the overarching is like so I feel like personally, in order to be successful, you have to be willing to sacrifice. If you're willing to sacrifice, you can have the success that you want to do. Like I feel like Christianity largely has certain pillars. Like you have to have faith. You don't have faith, you can't be a Christian. It's just impossible, right? I feel like in my journey as a father, as a husband, as a teacher, as a Christian, as a pastor, as a educational leader, I feel like one of the number one things is I have to be willing to give up so that others can. And if you can know how to give up that others can, then what will happen is the community will be helped.
And you're saying that's the message if you're 50 or 15.
I'm saying.
Sacrifices for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm kind of torn between talking about what I think is kind of my favorite topic versus
You're going to say love.
like what's the most, yeah.
I knew it.
Yeah. You know, we live in a world. The Apostle Paul said that at the end of times, evil men and seducers would wax worse and worse, deceiving, being deceived. And it talks about how at the end of time things would be really, really bad before the second coming of Christ. And I believe that, and I believe we're in the last days. And one of the challenges of the times that we live in, the challenge is division. It's division as a result of oppression. And it keeps humanity from uniting in according to the scripture in John 17:21, that they all may be one, as thou, Father, art in me and I in thee, that the world may believe that thou hast sent me. And so there's this beautiful opportunity for humanity through Christ to come together. And I think that if I tie that with kind of my favorite preaching topic, and that's love, my favorite scripture is 1 John 4:19. We love him because he first loved us. And I think that there's such a profound thought in that. And that is the thought of being first. It actually dovetails perfectly with sacrifice. The reason somebody is born again is because they come to the understanding that in an unlovable condition, Jesus loved them. I'll quote the words of Brother D.S. Warner from the 19th century. He wrote, "I know my sins have pierced thy heart, O Jesus crucified, and now thy heart is breaking mine. I bow to him who died." And so if we would all agree, if we would all, through the message of Christ, seek to be first lovers, that risk, that sacrifice, that vulnerability, if we'll be willing to lay down our defenses, because I think we live in an extremely insecure world. I think social media is proof of that.
We could
People
do a
are
whole podcast.
just insecurity is rampant, and as our chief apostle has said, it's an evil from the pit of hell to have insecurity. It just hurts people so bad that if we could get somehow through the message of our time, people to understand the impact that love has, then what they'll find is that when they love with the love wherewith they have been loved.
Right.
So there's no greater way to experience God, who is love, than through love.
And you experience his love when you love someone else. It's beautiful.
Even,
If you don't.
I would say, especially when it's rejected. I think in those moments, that's when we can go.
Great, right.
That's when we say, that's when we can begin to enter in with Christ's passion. And we can understand, okay, now I see.
You can't even love
Hardly
yourself.
ever, there's hardly ever a time in counsel that somebody comes to me that the answer isn't, 1 John 4:19. Just
First John 4:19.
take your problem, apply that text, God bless you. Almost never between two people. I got a problem. What did they say? What'd you do? Okay, your answer. Like, you could just almost down the line.
Right.
At least that's how I
That's
see
how
it.
you do it, huh? Well, that's beautiful. Uncle, Dad, Uncle. Thank you so much for coming. We enjoyed having you so much. Hope our audience, this long-awaited podcast, I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed discussing with them. Hopefully we get them back someday. And you all know what time it is. Peace.
Pooh! They forgot about that. You forgot about that. They forgot about that, Beast. They forgot about the
That's
pool.
like your generation.
They forgot about the pool.
That's you all. That's not okay, Dad.
That's the family gang sign right there. Pool.
Oh my, that's y'all.
They
sign
forgot.
out. That's y'all
They
sign
don't
out.
forgot. See.
All right, y'all got their sign out. Me and Peyton will do ours. Peace, love, and hair grease.